Well, hello and welcome to a book launch livecast. I have a great guest to introduce you to today and a great book. Now, first here at Ignite Press, we really focus on helping people bring their messages out to the world through books, through one of the most incredible and powerful mediums available. And that's what we get to do today. So today I want to introduce you to Brandon Smith, and Brandon is the author of The Author versus Editor Dilemma, the leadership secret to unlocking your team, your time, and your impact. Brandon has been on a quest for 20 years to end workplace dysfunction. In fact, he's known as the workplace therapist. He's also the author of The Hot Sauce Principle before this. And he's an executive coach and the co-founder of My Leadership Foundry. You are going to love this conversation. And so let me bring on Brandon. Brandon, how are you this day?
Everett, it's a really good day, my friend. It's book launch day. I mean, what better day than book launch day?
Oh, I feel exactly the same. They're our favorite times here at Ignite Press. And to see all the work that you've done finally come to fruition. The book live on Amazon and in our hands, right? All of this. Now, by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't tell people that right now they can get the Kindle version on Amazon for 99 cents. So I would encourage everyone to do that. Also, if you are attending this live, feel free to put comments in, cheer Brandon on, ask questions. I'll bring them to Brandon as we go. So, Brandon, I read some from your bio there, but tell us a little bit more about you and about what you do.
Well, Everett, I think you summed it up real well. I mean, my general purpose and passion in life is one singular thing, and that is to eliminate workplace dysfunction. And I've been on that journey almost, professionally since I started my own business and practice, almost 20 years. And that works in lots of different ways. So sometimes I'm an executive coach helping individual leaders lead their teams more effectively and build healthier cultures, which will dovetail into our conversation about the book today. Sometimes I work with teams, and then sometimes I do broader leadership development engagements. I'm historically taught in multiple business schools and their graduate MBA programs and helping those leaders develop and grow. And in addition to all that, I have got a couple podcasts, the Workplace Therapist podcast, as well as the Leadership Foundry podcast, where I put out content every week to make our workplaces a little smoother and a little less bumpy. So that's a large portion of what I do in life. I'm really passionate about what I do and really excited about the book today because it is such a practical, easy tool for leaders to grab a hold of and immediately make a difference in their world. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, fantastic. And you skipped something that you're also one of the most pleasant people to spend time with on the planet. So this is fantastic.
I don't know if my kids would agree with that, Everett. I don't know. It depends on the mood I'm in.
Yeah, but kids, do we really trust their opinion? I don't know. Yeah, no. Fantastic. And so really excited. So the book's called The Author versus Editor Dilemma. I think, let's dive into that. What do you mean by the author versus editor dilemma?
Yeah, so here is the dilemma. The dilemma is essentially knowing what seat to sit in. And so when we don't sit in the right seat, it causes us a lot of wasted time, wasted effort, exhaustion, and burnout. So let me set up the concept for us, and then we can start to dive in a little bit. So in any dynamic between a leader and a direct report, in that dynamic, someone always has to sit in the author seat, and someone always has to sit in the editor seat. And knowing what seat to sit in is key. So to kind of cut to the chase, as managers or leaders, I would want everyone listening to this to sit in the editor seat 80% of the time. The editor seat 80% of the time. And that makes perfect sense when you think about your all-time best and favorite direct reports. They would come to you and they'd say, "Hey, Everett, there's a problem. Here's what I think we should do about it. I'd love to get your thoughts." They author a solution for you to edit, which is a much better use of your time, by the way. Now, your not so effective direct reports are going to say, "Hey, Everett, there's a problem. What do you want me to do about it?" And as soon as they throw their hands in the air and say, "What do you want me to do about it?" It seems so innocent, But what they're really doing is they're now baiting you into that author seat. And it takes a lot more time to author things. So now you're either telling them what to do, or because we live in a world where everything's urgent all the time, we just say, don't worry about it, I'll just do it myself. And we dive in and start doing it for them. So it's making sure we're sitting in the right seats at the right time. And so in a perfect world, we author up and we edit down. We author up and we edit down. When we do that, as leaders, we should be working about 40 to 50 hours a week. When the flow gets reversed and there's authoring down, so our leaders are micromanaging us, or our folks won't take ownership of what we're asking them to do, when that flow gets reversed, then we find our hours creeping up to 65, 70 hours. So folks often think they have a time management issue. The reality is they have a seat issue. That's why it's a dilemma. So figuring out what seat to sit in is key, and it really is the secret to unlocking your team, your time, and your impact, which is, of course, the subtitle of the book.
Wow. Okay, so you just struck a chord with me. So one of the things that drives me nuts is if a team member comes to me with basically, Houston, we have a problem. Like that, right? Instead of, okay, Houston, we have a problem, and I think I've got some ways to perhaps solve it, or what if we did this, that type of thing. And it's so interesting because if with the Houston, we have a problem response, my blood pressure goes up, right? My stress, it's like, oh my gosh. Not only that, it always sounds like it's the end of the world. Of course, Houston, we have a problem kind of can be like that, but instead of, hey, I've got this issue, and what do we do to solve it? Versus, hey, I've got this issue, I've got a couple ideas. So that's very interesting, because honestly, as a CEO myself, right, I think my job should be authoring all the time. I should be the creative force, that let's do this, let's do that. I've got this idea, let's go like that. You're actually telling me I should be doing that about 20% of the time,
right?
And 80% of the time I should be tweaking the authoring that my team is doing. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. So Everett, let's do a little choose your own adventure. Okay. So here's the adventure I want you to choose for our first path. Do you want to choose the adventure of, let's talk about what it means for you to be an editor and how to do that really, really well? Or would you like to talk about that 20% and the few things that only you can author, and make sure you're really intentional about those? Which adventure would you like to start with?
Wow. You just hit it. You just hit it. I'd rather be spending 20% on the creative stuff myself,
Okay.
on those authoring pieces, knowing that my team has the talents to carry out some of those other pieces, and allowing them, right? Allowing them to do the creation that they're so talented at and so good at.
Right. So let's talk about your role as a CEO and what it means to author. And whether we're talking about CEO or a manager or a director or a VP, when we talk about authoring, there's only two things that only the leader can author. And so the first one is strategy/priorities. So that's strategy with the big S, and that's like, hey team, this is our goal for the year. This is maybe the number of authors we want to capture and help them support, or revenue, or whatever it happens to be. So it's kind of like your strategic goals and initiatives, strategy with a big S. And then there's strategy with a little s. And strategy with a little s are the key priorities for the week. So what are those key priorities, those 3 to 5 that really need to be focused on? We live in a world where everything's urgent all the time. That's why I wrote my first book about hot sauce principle, because urgency is like hot sauce. We can't put this stuff on everything, but we want to put it on those 3 to 5 things that are most important. So you need to be able to author those for the team so they can be focused. So that's the first one, strategy/priorities. The second thing that only you can author, Everett, and any leader, is culture. It's those 3 to 5 values where we essentially say, this is what it means to be part of this team. This is how we want to work with each other and how we want to work with our authors or our customers, whoever it is that we happen to be supporting. If leaders think of it that way and they say, yeah, okay, I need to be intentional about those things, the rest of the things we need to be more in the editor seat for.
Fantastic. So for me, priorities / strategy and culture, right?
That's
Those
right.
are the things that I can author, and really only I can author, right?
Right. That's right. And we want both those things to be about 3 to 5 because it's a focused, tight list. You don't want to post 12 or 20 values on the wall or have 12 or 20 priorities, their task lists, because then none of them are going to be sticky enough. So we want it nice and tight because we're trying to create that focus for our team, because in the world we live in today, focus is one of the best gifts we can give them. And they really look to us when we're wearing that leader hat to provide that.
Now, tell me, if you would, Brandon, what are some of the steps that someone can do in order to make that adjustment so that they are putting their priorities on authoring in the right amount and editing in the right amount and moving their teams that direction? What are some of the things that people can do?
Well, obviously the first step is you've got to buy this book, because the book has really got a roadmap for you. But just to keep it nice and simple for you, what the book is going to show you and help guide you on is how you make that shift, because it's about moving out of that author seat into the editor seat. And so let's talk about the traits of the editor and traits of the author, because I think that's an important distinction. So when we're in the editor seat, now, first thing we're doing is we're setting expectations. We're communicating our commander's intent to the team. So we're saying, this is my why, my what, and my when. But I'm going to let you all figure out the how. You're going to bring me the how, and we're going to talk about that. But I'm going to communicate my expectations. It's also a coaching seat. So when they bring you things, you're going to react to that. You're going to tell them what you liked and anything you'd like to make them have tweaks made. So the next time they bring you something, it's going to be that much better. So we're really trying to grow and elevate them. We're trying to really grow that team so they operate at such a high level, we can spend more of our time on the business rather than in the business. Because most leaders, to be honest, really are not leaders. They're firefighters. They may be great firefighters, but they're not really able to spend the time they want leading and being more on the business rather than in it. So when we sit in that editor seat, we can do that. Now, to make sure we're doing that, we've got to make sure everyone on our team operates like authors. So let's talk about the 3 components or traits of the author. So first, the author takes ownership. Second, the author shows initiative. Third, the author displays critical thinking. So everyone listening to this right now, wouldn't you want to be able to say, and maybe you can say, that everyone on your team does those 3 things? They take ownership, they show initiative, and they display critical thinking. So we've got to start to encourage them to make that shift. So all that said, the easiest starting place, which is super simple, is require in every single one of your one-on-one meetings with your members of your team, they always need to bring something for you to react to. Not only a point of view, but also recommendations or proposed next steps for you to be able to edit and discuss. When they show up to a meeting empty-handed, immediately you are in the author seat. And we've got our seats reversed. So the first starting place ever really is making sure that the folks on our team always come to the meetings prepared with something they've authored for us as leaders to edit and react to. And over time, we'll help elevate their performance. It creates a lot of alignment and really opens up opportunities for them as well as for us.
Excellent. Now I'm going to bring some questions to you from the audience here, if you don't mind.
Great.
So Whitney has a terrific question. When making the shift from author to editor, what's the most common challenge that you see for leaders?
So the most common one I see is the firefighter trap or the hero trap. So what happens is the team says, so Everett, I'm just going to keep using you because you've been such a great gift to me.
And myself out there as yeah.
So they'll come to you and they'll say, Everett, we can't do this without you. We don't know what to do. And you say, oh, don't worry. And you go to your closet and you throw on your hero cape and you swoop out there and you rescue them. And they say, Everett, thank you so much. You rescued the day. And you said, well, it was nothing. And then that happens the next day.
Yep.
And the next day. And the next day. So the hero trap is probably the most common trap, because as managers and leaders, we like being the hero. We want to help our teams, and it feels good to kind of save the day. But when we do that, we're stunting their growth, and we're creating a codependent relationship. So that's the therapist in me coming out. And we don't want to do that because we don't want them needing to rely on us. So now we go on vacation and we're getting phone calls in the middle of the day while we're trying to go to the beach. That's not good. So we really want to try and suspend ourselves from doing that and jump in and say, before I throw on my cape, how about you think about some ways to solve this and let's talk about it together. So thank you, Whitney. I love that question.
Yeah, that's terrific. I've got another one here for you. So what if my team lacks confidence to author and feels more comfortable editing my stuff? I mean, it's just easier, right?
Ash is great. Ash is exactly right. So a couple things around this. I haven't said it quite clearly, but I want to. With the author and editor seat, those seats have to be filled. So if we're authoring, Ash makes a great point. Immediately that puts our folks in the editor seat. So that means they can sit back and say, well, it's not my fault it didn't work out. I'm just doing what Brandon told me to do. And it's tricky. One more important thing Ash is hinting on, which is key to this whole concept, is to author is to be vulnerable. To author is to be vulnerable. You're always going to have at least a member or members of your team that do not like that discomfort. Because frankly, it's a heck of a lot easier to just do what you tell them to do. And then if it doesn't work out, they can say, well, it's not my fault. It's, I'm just doing what Brandon told me. So it's about getting them more comfortable with that. There's some great tips from the American Psychological Association on how to build resilience in folks. I won't go through all those, but a few of them remind folks that this is not an unsurmountable crisis, that they can get through this. And it's a learning experience. So by trying out and working on these things, I'm actually helping you grow and get better. So it's just getting them a little more comfortable with that process of authoring. When I work with leaders on this, which I've been doing for well over 5 years on getting them to shift their teams, if you've got 5 direct reports, you're going to have 2 that step up to the author thing right away. They're going to love it. You're going to have 2 that are going to come along a little more slowly, kind of like a adoption curve, but they're with you. And then you're going to have 1 who really doesn't like this. And they're going to try and come up with phrases like, I need your help, or I can't do this without you, or I'm confused, all designed to get you to sit back in that author seat because it's more comfortable. So just stretch them and push them and challenge them. One more thing you can do also tactically is if you've got a member of your team that's really good at authoring, pair them up with the person that's struggling just to provide them a little bit of tips and tricks on what they do. Maybe if there's a format that they use that they bring to the meetings with you every week that works really well, and that person who's a little uncomfortable can learn from that format. So there's some things that we can do, but the most important obstacle is us. So we've got to make sure that we're not the ones allowing that dynamic to happen. Thank you, Ash, for the great question.
Yeah, and like you said, otherwise we're creating this codependent relationship. We're really enabling this imbalance, right?
Right.
Really wonderful. So we're speaking here today with Brandon Smith, the author of the new book, The Author versus Editor Dilemma: The Leadership Secret to Unlocking Your Team, Your Time, and Your Impact. Yes, this is available today on Amazon. You can get the Kindle version for 99 cents. The paperback is there as well. Certainly encourage you to pick this book up for yourself, but also pick it up for other people that are working in, really in any team environment. This balance is absolutely critical. So pick up this book and make a fantastic gift. Now, Chris had a really good question I wanted to share with you as well. And she said, can you give us an example of authoring versus editing at home? I have teenagers and college kids home for the summer. Any tips for my seat choices this summer?
I love that, Chris. It's great. So I'm going to step back for a minute with the concept. This is the best tool for any vertical relationship. So we've been spending our time here today talking about you and your team, which is great, but also works just as well with you and your leader. And we can talk more about that in a minute if we have time. And it also works at home as parents because that's a vertical relationship. So in the perfect world, at some point around those early tween years, 11, 12, 13, parents start to shift out of authoring everything, doing everything for their kiddos, into more of an editor mode. And so what does that look like? Well, our kiddos start to learn how to clean their room by themselves, make their bed, start to do their own laundry by themselves, make their lunches before school, get themselves ready by themselves, take ownership of their classes in school as they get more into teenage years, and even start to decide what extracurricular activities they want to continue doing that they've been doing since they were 4, and which ones do they say, I just don't have any energy or passion, and I want to try something new. And so we really want to see that happen, because when we make that shift happen, by the time our kiddos are 23 or so and graduate from college, they are fully formed adults ready to take on the world and make a positive contribution and take care of themselves. If we don't do this and we say to ourselves, I got to control everything in my kid's life because that's the only way they're going to get into the perfect college. So I'm going to kind of not let them quit baseball because they've been doing it since they're 4. And now I'm not going to have them waste their time making their lunches or doing their laundry. I'm going to do it all for them. Then when they're 23, they are going to be a little gooey in the middle, still living in our basement. So making that pivot in their teenage years is really, really critical. So I think to Chris's question, I would start to think about, it varies by parent and it varies by situation, but start to think about what are those skills that your kiddos might need as fully formed adults. Maybe they need to start learning how to do their laundry, or maybe they need to start learning how to cook, and you assign a night for a kiddo to cook dinner, or going grocery shopping, or maybe they need to get a job. I'm a big fan of teenagers getting jobs, by the way. If we go back in the mid-90s, about 70% of all teenagers got jobs, part-time jobs while they were in high school. Today, that number is less than 35%. And so by the time they get their first, but they've done lots of volunteer activities, which should not be ever confused with working a job, by the way. So by the time they graduate college, their first employer gets to be their first job. And so that's why we have some bumpiness that occurs with some folks in that position. So get them a part-time job. I mean, there's so many ways that we can start to stretch those muscles. So by the time 23 comes, they are ready to take on the world. So I don't have a specific answer for Chris, other than maybe just good time to reflect on, where do I think my kiddos are progressing and maturing in the right way? What skills do they still need to pick up? So I'm not required to come visit them at college to make their bed or do their laundry, and you laugh. But my daughter, who's a 20-year-old, has a classmate whose mom comes on the weekends and does all those things. So not particularly helpful when we think about kind of growing our kiddos. Just like not particularly helpful when we were talking about growing our direct reports. If we're doing all that hard work for them, they're never going to learn how to do it themselves, which means they're never going to leave us. They can't be promoted, just like our kiddos can't be promoted out of the house. So it's all about developing.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at promotions. Now, related to what you were just talking about, Ruth has this question. How as managers/leaders can we best change the conversation and empower employees to create solutions?
Yeah. So Ruth, really great question. I think what we want to start to do here is we want to naturally encourage them to bring some ideas. So when we're at our best authoring with leaders, we're going to come and bring 2 things: a point of view, which is here's what's going on in my world. Like here's what's running ahead of schedule, behind schedule, almost like a status update. And then here's what I think we need to adjust or prioritize, or ideas I've got to solve the problem. So the first step is asking/requiring that your team members bring those to you in every meeting. They bring not only status update, but also that recommendations on what needs to happen. But the second part is about how you handle that conversation, which we haven't talked about yet. So there is a difference between being an editor and a critic. I want everyone to hear this. There's a big difference between being an editor and a critic. We've all worked for critics. And so critics, they think they're editing, but all they're doing is just redlining everything, right? They've got their red marker out, and they are going to town on everything that we present them. And you're not going to get any ideas the next time around you ask. So when they do bring you ideas, you've got to be really encouraging and give that positive feedback. So we want to almost use the improv approach of yes and. We want to say, oh, I love all these things about the ideas you gave me, and let's talk about some tweaks we can make over here that might make them even better, or why I like this idea better than the other. So we're trying to improve their critical thinking each time, but we're being very encouraging in the process. So to sum up, 2 things, Bruce: require that they bring a point of view as well as some recommendations and ideas. And second, be really affirming of those ideas. So the next time they bring you even more or maybe even better.
Okay, excellent. In your book, you talked about changing an employee's perspective in regards to how they're dealing with their manager. And can do you recall what I'm talking about? Can you talk about how you help the employee look at their manager in a completely different way?
Yeah. So it reminds me of some work I did in the luxury retail space some years ago. And luxury retail had changed a lot because of e-commerce. And one time, and one of my conversations, one of those leaders told me, they said, we realized we had to go from a clerking culture to a clienteling culture. So a clerking culture is we sit back and we say, how can I help you? A clienteling culture is they come to you and they say, oh my gosh, you would look amazing in this. Well, how many of us actually clientele with our leader? Not very many of us. We sit back and clerk. We say, how can I help you? How can I help you? What would you like me to do? And so it's changing that to where you're viewing your leader as your number one client or customer. And when we make that shift in our brain, then all of a sudden we go to them proactively with authored solutions. Say, oh my gosh, you would look amazing in this. Or here's what I think we should do. And it makes it a lot easier for us to naturally come prepared in those conversations. And I will tell you, it is really, really critical if you've got any kind of leader that's got ADHD tendencies, because if you don't bring something authored for them, they're going to make a hard right or a hard left, or they're going to go a deep dive into details, and it's just going to create a lot more work for you. So when you come authored, you're helping to focus them. I actually coach CEOs on this when they have boards that they report to, because those boards they're like Shark Tank. They're made up of folks with really strong personalities and strong points of view. And if they don't come with something authored to that board is going to be just jerking the business around as they're taking it down different paths of exploration. So going with an authored perspective up is really, really important.
Okay, I think that's a really powerful perspective, because quite frankly, if you don't, right, like what you're saying is they're going to go a hard left, hard right, or deep dive. They're going to start authoring stuff for you to edit.
Sit in that seat.
Yeah,
Someone's going to
just because they've got the airspace to do it, and they're going to go lay out. You know what? Let's go this crazy direction. Let's go that crazy direction. Whereas if you as your team member can bring to them, hey, here's some things that are going to help us continue through and make this process better and all of that, and treat them as a client. Really, really, really excellent, Brandon. Well, I'll tell you, I'm excited about this book. I think that it's very, very valuable for people. And I'm glad that to see it launching on Amazon today, just as a reminder for everybody, they can pick the book up for 99 cents on the Kindle version. They can pick up the paperback. Wendy said she just got her copy. Cannot wait to dive in. And Ruth thanked you for answering her question so thoroughly. So before we leave, Brandon, is there, if people want to go deeper with this, if they want to engage with you directly or with your organization, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the simplest way is, if you want to find me, just Google the Workplace Therapist. I'm the only one. And that site's got links to all my podcasts and resources, a way to connect with me. Of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Always happy to connect with new folks there. And if I can help in any other way, you can send me a note, and that's what I'm here for. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation here today. And most importantly, I really encourage you to pick up the book. I can't emphasize enough, any vertical relationship, whether it's our leader, our board, our team, our kiddos, any vertical relationship, this tool and concept will help unlock opportunities for you that are just waiting for you.
Excellent. So good. So good. Brandon, thank you for your time today. We're excited to see the book out in the wild, finally. Thank you also for everybody who has joined us on this live cast and asked questions and has given encouragement. That is so wonderful. So for those people, again, you can pick up the Kindle version for 99 cents. I think that this is one of the best investments you will ever make. And I think you'll find it incredibly valuable. Thank you again for joining us on the Livecast. And if you're watching this and you have an idea for a book that you would like to bring to the world, perhaps a book that can really move the lever in your business or in the lives of others, please reach out to us. You can find us at ignitepress.us. That's ignitepress.us. And we'd be happy to schedule a complimentary book consultation. Thank you again for joining us on this Livecast.